Hey, what's up guys, it's Nick2, and today I'm going to be showing you guys an actually surprisingly good top tree firepower Devastator build that can easily gold every single CT15 map and is overall really strong. I really did want to make the anomaly power build first, and I know that some of you guys are going to be disappointed that that's not what this video is. I'm sorry, but unfortunately I just haven't been able to get any of the AP legendaries yet, and while I was trying to farm for them today, I ended up getting the gear that would work for this build. And someone in my Twitch chat recommended that I try it out, and I also recommend that you guys try this out if you're trying to get to CT15, or if you're at CT15 and you don't know what to do to be able to farm for anomaly power build. But a lot of the information that this guy got from Twitch chat that was helping me out, he shared with me from another Twitch streamer by the name of Gamesager. So make sure to check out Gamesager at twitch.tv/Gamesager, as this build is heavily inspired by the information that he's been putting out there, and I probably wouldn't be able to make this video if it weren't for him and the other guy helping me out in chat, spreading information about what to do with Devastator. Regardless though, as you can see, the build is still very good, and the gameplay is, even with me having it far from set up perfectly. I'll talk about what the perfect setup is in the video, but with a perfect setup, Gamesager himself was actually able to get a Boomtown run in only 4 minutes and 30 seconds, which is pretty impressive. So yeah, let's just get right into the build, and I also have some gameplay of me doing a Boomtown at the end, so feel free to check that out. One thing real quick before I get into it, turns out that 86% of you guys aren't subscribed, so if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe. Also on April, what day is it right now? On April 23rd, I'm going to be doing a subathon where I am going to be giving away free carries raffled out throughout the entire stream. So if you guys are interested in free expedition carries over on my Twitch during a subathon event, go follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Nick2, and make sure to check me out on Friday, April the 23rd. First off, starting off with the skills, so we're going to be using Gravity Leap, Endless Mass, and Golem. Golem is absolutely mandatory with this build. Pretty much gives you all the survivability that you need, but it also pairs very well with the legendary set, which we'll talk about in a second, and it also gives you a whole bunch of other stuff that is heavily synergistic with this build. Golem is an absolute must. The other skills don't entirely matter a lot. Basically, we're just using double kinetic so that we can have 100% uptime on our kinetic, giving us extra weapon damage percent. However, Endless Mass synergizes pretty well with the weapon mod that we're using, which pretty much allows this build to function in the first place. And then we're using Gravity Leap, not only because it gives us a lot of mobility, also acts as an interrupt, but also for more uptime on our extra damage percent. One thing I thought about using was maybe Boulder Dash with the mod that gives you extra weapon damage for bursting down bosses or something, but ultimately you end up not having a lot of mod slots with this build to play around with, because a lot of things are kind of fixed in place, and you're gonna, your damage is gonna suffer a lot if you don't have the perfect mods there. So we're not playing with Boulder Dash. Also, the animation for it is like super clunky. This is what we're going for. If you want to play something else, be my guest, but this is what I think is best. In terms of the class tree, it's pretty basic top tree stuff. The only thing that's really interesting here is that we go down to Stone Circle. The reason being is that it's going to extend the damage considered to be close range by an additional 4 meters. We are only using this because we're using a gear mod, Stare into the Barrel, that gives us extra firepower based on how many enemies are in close range, and this pretty much allows us to have higher uptime on that mod. However, if you're not using that mod, you can pretty much forgo this and then go for extra shotgun damage, and then go for some, maybe you could go champion even though you're not going to have it up all the time, or you could go into perpetual motion for some extra cooldown reduction, another perpetual motion, and then, more weapon leech and the extra shotgun damage, whatever. But you definitely want to make sure to get heirloom armor, because this is also going to give you just a ton of survivability. Pair this with Golem, you're pretty much entirely invincible with this build, which is kind of the cool thing about Devastator, is that you can kind of just do whatever you want, even though your damage isn't as great as other characters, but it is pretty good once you get it set up. But generally speaking, it's not as great as the other classes, but you do have a bunch of survivability, which I think is really cool. So yeah, this is how we have the class tree set up. Pretty much if you're not using Stare into the Barrel, you can just ditch these two and then go into like weapon damage and then perpetual motion. So getting into the gear and the mods, etc., we're actually going to first talk about weapons, because there's one mod that, particularly with Devastator, I tried it with Trickster and stuff, didn't seem to be broken there, but with Devastator, for some reason, it's particularly broken, ends up doing about half of your damage, and it's one of the reasons why I think this build you can use all the way up until CT15, is because this one mod kind of just carries you and is incredibly powerful. That one mod is Ultimate Damage Link. I've tried this on other characters, Techno, Trickster, and Pyro. Not even that good on those other characters, it's okay. For some reason on Devastator, it's like broken, and based on the extra weapon damage that you get, it ends up just doing a whole bunch of extra damage. It's incredibly inconsistent, but sometimes if you kill one mob next to an elite, the elite will end up just dying and just taking a million extra percent weapon damage. I honestly don't know the cause of this. I think it has something to do with all the extra percent weapon damage that you're scaling with being Devastator, and the fact that you're not using a round skill. It probably has something to do with that. I don't completely know, but basically this ends up doing about half of your damage. Helps you with a lot of AoE, but also if you play around it properly, you can just completely melt elites, and it's incredibly powerful. In terms of what weapon you want to put ultimate damage link on, I have a pretty high roll death shield here, and I'm using it just because Fortress gives a whole bunch of extra damage, but also because this is a pretty high roll. Alternatively, you can just get a purple like this one. Ideally, you want it to have armor pierce, because armor pierce is very strong for you, because your shots aren't going to go through enemies' armor like other classes. So armor pierce actually makes a really big difference. And then just slap on ultimate damage link. By the way, ultimate damage link comes from the Voodoo Matchmaker. You could maybe use normal damage link, but it's just significantly worse than T3 damage link is. But yeah, if you're looking for a different shotgun, recommend just getting a narrow variant that has armor pierce and close range damage. Alternatively to the Fortress, you could also get the Anemoy, which has Moaning Winds by default, and then on the second mod slot, you slap on ultimate damage link. Otherwise, Funeral Pyre is not very good, but meh. The only other thing I think that was okay when I was trying it is High Roller. The only problem with High Roller is that it's a breach variant, but it kind of makes up for it a little bit because it has armor pierce, close range damage, and it comes with Embalmer's Rage, which is really good. So yeah, I would just try to look out for a narrow variant, though. Ideally, you get the Death Shield because Fortress is really good, and then it comes with the close range damage. No armor piercing, but you pretty much make up for it with Fortress being there. Otherwise, just get, a purple one that looks like this. The other mod doesn't really matter. I have Anomaly Enhancement. There's way more, better mods that you could get, but that's what we got going. For the second weapon, because my build isn't perfectly optimized, and we'll talk about what the best setup would be, because my build isn't optimized, my boss damage on 15s is a little worse than I want it to be. So the way that I'm compensating for that is by having a second weapon that has Moaning Winds and Radiation Splash on it. I'm using the Anemoy for this. The reason this is really good is because I pretty much just have this unloaded, and anytime I need extra damage, I just weapon swap, and this is going to do an absolute ton of damage, and it's also going to apply vulnerable to the enemy with Radiation Splash. I also even have Moaning Winds on my pistol with Clip Combustion, and I pretty much do the same thing with this, just to melt bosses really quickly. Helps out a lot. The reason that you can do this on this character, not on the other characters, is because the other characters, if you swap weapons, you lose your, twisted rounds or whatever. But on a Devastator, you don't have to worry about that. The only problem with doing this is that you may end up running out of ammo, and is why I would probably not do this once I get, the build perfectly set up. I would rather just put on like a secondary weapon like a burst AR, because oftentimes you will run out of ammo and that really sucks, and then I'd probably just keep the Moaning Winds on like my pistol or something. This is just a slight optimization you can do, but it helps me out a ton with my clear speed, and it gives you a lot of AoE when you otherwise don't have some. I think it's really good, but that's up to you. By the way, Radiation Splash comes on the Guillotine, so you could do it with the Guillotine tune. You could do it with the Guillotine too, but this is what I do. So moving into the gear, the reason that this build works is because of 3-piece statue. You can do this without 3-piece statue, but we're doing it with 3-piece statue because basically what it does, using either Tremor or Golem, increases your firepower by 100% and your weapon leech by 100% for you and your teammates. Basically, you don't use Tremor with this build. You don't need to. Tremor sucks. Basically, anytime that your Golem is active, you're going to have the extra firepower, which is what makes this really good. Pretty much you run a couple mods, which we'll talk about, that allow you to have 100% uptime on Golem, and then that is going to translate into you having 100% uptime on double the firepower. Mix that with some mods, and that allows your damage to scale up really high. Unfortunately, the firepower percent doesn't work for your teammates right now for some reason. If it did, this build would actually be way better, because you could just run with the Technomancer, buff them so they just are hitting for like 3 million a shot or whatever, and also make them invincible at the same time. It would even be insanely good for literally any other character. This is very good, but it doesn't work currently, so pretty much we're doomed to play solo with this. But 100% firepower, incredibly powerful. The only problem with the statue set is that you need 3 pieces, and the 3 pieces that are good don't exist. Pretty much like the chest is the best piece out of them, and then the rest of them are max health. There's a helmet that I want that has firepower and rolls with one of the Golem mods on it. I really want this helmet, however, I don't have it yet, so my build is going to be a little bit worse because I don't have it. As a result of me not having that helmet, I lose a lot of damage because I have to use these crappy gloves that have max health on them, and it also has a mod that's completely dead. If I were to have the helmet, I'd be able to swap out these gloves, put on that helmet, and then I'd be, completely solid, and I'd gain a whole extra gear mod, and that would be really cool. I'm also missing one of the T3 mods that gives you 25% extra damage to enemies that are bleeding, which is very powerful. But let's just talk about all the mods that you want. So starting off from the helmet, pretty much on every piece of gear, ideally you want bonus firepower, close range damage, and then cooldown reduction. But the main thing that matters is getting firepower and close range damage. 3 of those pieces are going to be locked out because they're going to be part of your set, right? So, but for the 2 purples, you want firepower, close range, and cooldown reduction. Don't have CDR on my helmet, but this is what I got. So I'm going with Sharp Eye and Bloodlust. Both of these are going to increase your firepower by an absolute ton. Sharp Eye is kind of optional with this, but basically the more firepower you stack up, the more damage you stack up, and that's also going to synergize well with your 3-piece statue here. So that's very powerful. I definitely at least get Bloodlust. I think that's mandatory. And then on our chest, with this setup, unfortunately, because a lot of the pieces come with mods that give you tremor, etc., basically you end up having to just deal with a dead mod here in order to get the 3-piece. So on the chest piece, this is kind of a mandatory one because it's one of the ones that roll with firepower, and it also has cooldown reduction. Unfortunately, no close range damage, and unfortunately, we're stuck with this awful mod with this tremor thing. Is what it is. If you wanted to, you could run tremor in a group and then give your boys 40% weapon damage. So it's not completely worthless, but the other mod that it comes on is also pretty bad because it affects tremor. We're not even using that. But for the other mod, I just put Captain Hunter to increase my damage against elites because that's the main problem with this build. I do mobbing pretty decently, but elites I have a little bit of an issue with. So getting extra damage against elites is very powerful. For my legs, I'm going firepower, close range damage. Couldn't get cooldown reduction, but that would make this a lot better. And then you go with Golem, increase the skill's duration by 100%. This allows us to have it up longer, pair it with another mod, and then we have 100% uptime on Golem pretty much whenever we're in combat, which allows us to have 100% uptime on the 100% firepower, which is pretty much the main cornerstone of this build. The other mod that we're using is Vampiric Mag. Killing shots on enemies afflicted with bleed replenishes 50% of your ammo. If you don't use this, you're going to have ammo problems. You're literally just going to run out of ammo. This is absolutely mandatory. Sometimes your T3 damage link is going to snipe kills from you to where you're not actually going to benefit from this. That kind of sucks, but without this, you're just going to run out of ammo and you're going to have a bad time. The way that you're getting bleed is you're using Golem of Death with Bleeding Impulse. So this comes on the boots, so using the boots is mandatory. It's the one piece where you're going to be stuck with max health on it, which kind of sucks. But it comes with close range damage and cooldown reduction, which helps mitigate that fact. And then it comes with 2 mods on it that are pretty good. Or it comes with Bleeding Impulse on it, and then you put Golem of Death or whatever else in the top slot. Bleeding Impulse is a mandatory mod. When the skill is active, you spawn radial impulses that inflict bleed on enemies with a 10-meter radius. Pair this with the Vampiric Mag, which is on my pants here. And then you pair it with a T3 mod that gives you 25% extra damage to enemies that are bleeding. And then you get the damage where... And then there's also a tier 2 mod, Bloody Boost, where you get 15% extra damage to enemies bleeding. And that's incredibly powerful. I unfortunately don't have those mods because I'm stuck with a dead mod on my hands. And I don't have the 25% damage to bleeding one yet because that comes on a legendary. But with this mod, it enables you to apply bleed to everything, which then allows you to use all these other bleed mods. And then Golem of Death allows you to pretty much keep up your Golem all the time. Anytime you kill somebody, it's going to extend the duration of Golem by 2 seconds. Pair that with the 100% duration, you have Golem up all the time. And then that's pretty much all the synergies with this build. The only last thing that I would say to use is Stare into the Barrel. Boost your firepower by 10k for each enemy in close range, stacks up to 5 times. This actually comes on the Tanner's hat, and in my infinite wisdom, I rolled off Stare into the Barrel. I wish I didn't do that, because Tanner's hat actually rolls by default perfectly. You get firepower, close range damage, and cooldown reduction, and it rolls with Stare into the Barrel, and then you could just put Bloodlust or whatever else you want on it. I replaced Stare into the Barrel. The reason you want Stare into the Barrel is because the more firepower the better. The more firepower you have, the more that this number is going to scale with your statue's torso, with your statue's set, which is incredibly powerful to do. So that's why we're going all of the firepower. If I had this build set up better, basically what I would do is I would have the statue helmet, which rolls with firepower cooldown reduction, I believe. And then that also has the Golem 100% duration mod on it. And then that would allow me to swap out my gloves, and then I could gain gloves with firepower, close range, cooldown reduction, and then I could also gain a mod. So that would make my damage go up a pretty significant amount, and with that extra mod, I would probably either go with buckshot shells is pretty decent. Ideally, I would go with 25% extra damage to enemies that are bleeding, because you'll have that up pretty much all the time. That'll also help with your boss damage significantly. This is what I have going for me right now. It works pretty decently, but like I said, the build could be better, and I also could be playing better, and this is also, you know, my first day being CT15 with Devastator. Thank you guys so much for watching. If the video helped you out, please make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and enjoy the gameplay. Alright, see you guys. Alright, dumping our ammo here. We got more boss damage since we're missing those mods that help us out with boss damage. Just kind of how we fix that. And here we hope that we just, you know, get a little lucky with our damage links, because sometimes they can be a little inconsistent, especially given the buggy nature of them. I'm gonna get everything sucked up with the boss boy here. That's pretty good. That was fairly solid. Our sharp eye stacks going. Oh, that is weird. It's okay. Certainly weird, but you know, here's where damage link bug is pretty cool. Sometimes it isn't as good as other times. I'm getting sent all over the place, dude. I'm going on a trip. I am getting sent on a trip this round. A little weird stuff going on, but you know, it's not too bad. Nothing we can't handle. Not nearly the fastest I've done that, but you know, not too bad. A little weird how we were getting sent all over the place, and usually I like to have both of those captains in the middle next to each other, and then damage link can kind of carry them, but sometimes damage link's internal cooldown is like really weird, so better to just be safe, and every time you go for an elite, try to make sure the cooldown is available, pretty much. Like right here, I'm just gonna wait for my mass, and then if I just get all the guys together, I'm careful, we can just get the elite down pretty easily, not a big deal. Cool. We want to kill some more guys to get our columns stacked up again. Probably gonna lose it here, so. Something that some of the other maps are a little better for is constant flow of enemies like right next to you. If you lose Golem, your survivability goes down a good chunk as well, but certain maps are better for it than others for sure. I played the map a lot with the setup and I learned how to route it properly. Probably be much more optimal. However, this is what we got going on at the moment. Really sucks we have to use, you know, suboptimal version, but it's all right, you know. It gets the job done for now. One reason Moaning wins is pretty good. Getting more cooldown reduction would help us a lot, for sure. Also just more close range damage too, I mean like... You guys kind of got owned. Not too shabby, not too shabby. You know, our time isn't great. If I played the map better, it could certainly be better, but we're able to gold with firepower builds, and that's with a scuffed version of it. Missing firepower on two whole pieces, you know, kind of messes us up. So we had those better pieces. This could be way better. Hopefully I can make the AP setup soon. I kind of almost like feel bad making a video with the build not being like super good, because I know that this can be better. But I just want to get the video out to you guys. So that's the build. The gameplay could be better too. But yeah, I mean, I really just need that statue helmet, and then this is like way better. But yeah, I'm gonna keep... I've gotten the seismic commander thing 3 times today, and I haven't gotten a single other seismic piece. It's really sad trying to get this set up, but hopefully I can make the seismic piece build soon and post it for you guys. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace. Just in case you guys wanted to see the overall damage done, as you can see, damage link pretty much carries us. And then Moaning Winds does a pretty good amount as well. And then we have Radiation Splash with a little bit of damage. But yeah, it's mainly damage link. So, yep, that's the build.